YouTube, no matter where you're tuning in, all over the world. My name is Kari Cooper, and you have stumbled into my corner. Welcome. I am so happy to have you. So happy to have you here. Remember, as you're joining, we do have our amazing host, Tracy Drake, who handles our chat. But as you're joining, we've already got a hello from the UK. I love it. Hello in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have a super special guest. You guys are going to be so pumped because I know on your end, this particular group of people is probably, they're just this mystical group of people that you're like, who is this? Why do they have so much to do with my immigration process? You get to put a face to the name of CGFNS today, ladies and gentlemen, and I am so excited for that. I do have a couple of, hello, everyone. I do have a couple of housekeeping announcements before we begin. Two things real quick. Number one, if you are a part of our worldwide family, if you are an RN and you are in that immigration process and you're prepping for your English language exam, please remember to reach out to your case manager and let them know, hey, I want to be enrolled in Kari's free course. It is free and it's brought to you by your friends at Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions. So super excited to have you. I would love to have you enrolled in the course. I would love to work with you. Once you complete the course, you get to have one-on-one tutoring sessions with yours truly. Not like you get enough of me every Thursday morning or evening, wherever you are. So complete that free English language course brought to you by Worldwide, and you get to hang out with me one-on-one. What kind of, how else can I motivate you? That's such a perk. But one thing I do, hello in Gambia. Hello in Pakistan. So happy to see everyone tuning in. Jamaica. Ugh, I feel like you've joined before and I'm like, Jamaica. I'm so jealous. One other friendly announcement is some people have been a little confused. This is not the free course. Believe it or not, this is just Kari's Corner. It's a weekly segment that we do where I talk about English tips and tricks, and I get to bring on very special guests. So this is not the free course. If you think you're in the free course, you're not. But I am still very happy to have you here today. And with that being said, hello in the Philippines. We love our Philippines team. So many of you in Kenya. I love seeing where everyone's watching from. This is just so cool to me. Vivian in Nigeria, hello. So today, like I said, we are lifting the veil. We are putting a face with a name for CGFNS, that mystical being that handles your visa screen, that handles, where you have to send English proficiency scores sometimes, that evaluates your English credentials, that evaluates your educational credentials. CGFNS does so much, and Worldwide works so closely with the amazing team at CGFNS. But today, I'm really excited to bring on Kaley Cook. She works for CGFNS, and she is here with us today. So everyone say a big hello to Kaylee. We are so thankful to have you here, Kaylee, and talking about CGFNS and everything that CGFNS does and offers for all of our nurses. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
We are, I don't know if you can see the chat, but I've got applause going off. I've got so many people so excited to have someone from CGFNS, because I know so many times they think it's just a little, maybe a chat bot that they talk to or an email. Like, no, there's real people over at CGFNS that lay human eyes on all of your information.
A growing amount of people.
Awesome. So Kaylee, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been with CGFNS, and what is your particular role at CGFNS?
Absolutely. So hi, everyone. My name is Kaley Cook. I am the program manager at the Alliance, which is the division of CGFNS. And I've been with CGFNS as a company for about 4.5 years now. Prior to this role, I worked as a credentials evaluator. So I was in our CES department actually going through some of the applications and getting those reports out to the state boards.
Wow. So you know exactly what these nurses are having to submit, having to turn in. You have laid eyes on all of this information. Once they click that submit button, Kaylee was the one looking at all of your stuff, folks.
I know.
Well, I am super excited to have you. Kaylee has made a beautiful presentation for us that's going to talk about the international programs overview. And so with that, if you have questions for Kaylee, post them in the chat. Make sure they're related to CGFNS. I know a lot of you sometimes want to be like, this Kaylee can't answer questions about the NCLEX. But Worldwide did just hire someone to, we have a new program coming out helping you with the NCLEX. So maybe I'll have, her name's Arnie and she's in the Philippines. So maybe I'll have her on the show soon. But for today, let's try to keep those questions targeted for Kaylee and CGFNS. But please, please, please ask those questions as you have them. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Kaylee.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'm going to get started on just an overview of CGFNS's programs, a few of the programs and services that we offer. We'll go through those, and then we'll have some time for questions as well at the end. So I wanted to start with just some background on who CGFNS is and what we do. So we have been working in credentials evaluation for more than 45 years at this point. And we have helped with over 4 million, we've processed over 4 million applications from over 190 countries in that time.
Holy
and what
smokes.
our goal? Sorry?
I said, holy smokes.
I know.
That's a lot of paperwork.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a lot of work on the other end for all of those individuals submitting everything. So our goal is to not only help safeguard public safety through the evaluation of credentials to ensure comparability to the domestic market, but also to enable individuals to be able to bring their needed education, their needed skills into the United States and be able to utilize them here. So we do this role for not only the United States, but also for Canada and New Zealand throughout our various programs. On the next slide, I have an overview of some of the programs that we have. You see that they come in 3 main categories. These are a few of our biggest programs, and today we're going to be focusing on the ones that are listed in bold. So the CES Professional Report, the Visa Screen Program, and the CGFNS Certification Program. But you can see here that there's 3 main categories, and they do different things. So we have credentials evaluation, credentials verification, and certification. So which program that you would select would depend on what outcome you're looking for, what you're trying to do, and who you're applying to. Something like the Visa Screen is going to a different location than a CES report. That's just an overview of the 3 main categories, and we will shift right now to the CES report and talk in a little bit more depth here. Our Credentials Evaluation Service Professional Report provides a detailed analysis of credentials that you would have earned in nursing education, as well as licensing outside of the US. And these reports are put together for US state boards of nursing. And so we put those together, we send them directly to the State Board of Nursing, and that's a very important part. When you're ordering a CES report, you are selecting a recipient, so a US state where that report is going to go. And which state you select can impact certain aspects of the CES report. So the CGFNS CES Professional Report includes a statement of comparability of healthcare workers' education when assessed against US standards. So you're getting a comparability statement saying your education is comparable to that would have been received in the US. Maybe it's partially comparable, or maybe it's not comparable. And these reports are advisory to the State Board of Nursing. And that means that it's the state board that's making the final decision. Alongside of this CES report, you would also have an application to that State Board of Nursing. You may have other requirements there. And that State Board of Nursing is making the final decision. So they would read the report we put together for them and make their own decision. And that's why there can be different requirements, including English score requirements, depending upon the recipient state. So what happens is a state will talk to CGFNS, they'll tell us what their requirements are. We would build that report based on those requirements for that specific state. And so if you were to order 2 CES reports at the same time, one for Missouri and one for Pennsylvania, they may have 2 different requirement sets. You may be seeing documents that are rejected for one state but accepted for another, and that's going to come down to those state board requirements.
So that kind of explains, like, if you pull CGFNS, for those of you who have not been on their website, it's a really helpful website. You can select your service by state. I'm very familiar. I'm on it every day. So I'm very familiar with it. And sometimes you'll see with the CES report, I think it's important to announce that, CES reports do accept all of the same English exams as the visa screen exam now, correct?
Yes. That's very recent, though.
Yeah. Yes. Very, very recent.
That's going to change. Yes.
Yes. So, but sometimes you'll see like English proficiency scores not required to be submitted. Can you talk about maybe like what that means? Like translate that a little bit for our nurses who are like, well, according to CGFNS, I don't have to have an English proficiency score. Can you help our nurses kind of understand what that means?
So for certain states, you wouldn't. It just depends on what those state requirements are. And then beyond that, whether or not you're supposed to have the exam, even beyond that, the scores that they consider passing or failing may be different as well. And so it would vary depending upon what service you're selecting and what state you're going to. So there's not going to be, one answer that I can give you to tell you what you would need. Unfortunately, in the US, there's no centralized health system. And so it is all down to the state level, which means you can have 50 different answers to one question. And it's kind of up to all of us together to wade through it.
You are preaching to the choir. I love wading through that information.
Absolutely.
But CES report is probably one of the most common reports that I see boards of nursing asking for. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Love
Absolutely.
a good CES report.
So because it is one of our most common services, I wanted to go through some of the components of a CES professional report, what we're looking at for the education side. It's completion of secondary school education. This is an item that you're able to submit yourself as the applicant. I would stress to include the highest level of secondary education that you have. I know that some countries have a 10-year track and they have a 12-year track. Make sure it's the highest level because this is a part that can actually impact that comparability statement. The second is completion of a first level RN or a second level LPN nursing program that needs to come from a government accredited nursing school. We will be asking for the transcript and for additional information that needs to come directly from that school. So that's not something that you would be able to submit yourself. And you can see here that there needs to be sufficient theoretical instruction and clinical practice in the major areas of nursing that are listed here. This is another area where states can have differing requirements. Some states have different standards than others, which you may be seeing in discrepancies in the reports that you see. Whether or not you're getting that comparability statement may come down to different standards that the states have. And then finally, validating all licenses that are held by the applicant. And of course, that would need to come directly from the licensing authority as well. So these are the components of the report that we put together. In addition to that would be any English requirements that are coming from those state boards of nursing. So you would be submitting those scores to CGFNS and we would be including those in our report to the state board.
Very good.
So we'll move now. Is there any other question for CES we want to address now before we move into visa screen?
It says, can they consider the CES report from CGFNS US to CGFNS New Zealand? I'm guessing NZ is New Zealand. If that's wrong,
we do have another program for New Zealand, but they wouldn't be able to transfer those reports. It's a separate process.
There you go, Nick. It is a separate process. Awesome. I know that one of the biggest things is, even with the CES report and all those things, a lot of nurses will see, my CES or my state doesn't require. A lot of our nurses endorse their license. So they don't have to have an English exam. But when we tell them, like, you still have to have a visa screen. And a visa screen does require an English language proficiency exam. So unless you're exempt from the exam because of your education, you have to take an English exam. So I'll let you get to talking about that awesome visa screen service.
Absolutely. So one of our other larger programs is our Visa Screen service, and that is a comprehensive screening service for healthcare professionals seeking an occupational visa to work in the U.S. So this is different than the CES report. It's happening usually earlier on in the immigration process, but it can vary, of course, and it's going to result in a certificate. If you pass through the visa screening program and you are certified, you get a physical certificate that you can take with you to your embassy exam and that you may be using as you're stepping through the immigration process. So this certificate satisfies the U.S. federal screening requirements, and it provides a determinative outcome. So that's different from our CES report, where the final decision is lying with that State Board of Nursing. For the Visa Screen certificate, we're taking all the information that you provide us, and we're assessing whether or not you meet the requirements or not. So you're getting a definitive answer then from us in the form of that certificate. Those certificates are valid for 5 years. And just to be fully clear, they do not grant licensure in the United States. This is a fully separate step. You would still need to apply to the State Board of Nursing. You may still need a CES report on top of this. As Kari pointed out already, there can be overlap between those requirements. I know that the waters get very muddy here, but if you have a visa screen, you may have fewer requirements for the State Board of Nursing. If you're doing an endorsement, you may have fewer requirements. So something to absolutely make sure you're looking into for your specific state is what those requirements are, and looking at the full range of certificates that you may have as well. If we skip to the next slide, we have a look at some of the components of the visa screen here. So there are 3 different elements. The first one is that credential evaluation. It's pretty similar to the CES report we already discussed. But of course, there can be differences there as well. And then we have the second step, which is the CGFNS qualifying exam, or NCLEX. So for Visa Screen, you have to prove that you have passed one of these exams. So it could be the NCLEX, it could be the CGFNS qualifying exam, but those are necessary for the Visa Screen, as well as an English language proficiency test. So to your point, that is exactly where, even if your state doesn't require it, you may still need it to get your visa to come in.
Absolutely. I love that. Say it louder for the people in the back. Still got to take an exam, everybody.
Yep.
So worldwide share with a free course.
Okay, so the next program is our CGFNS Certification Program. And this is similar to the Visa Screen in that it's a certification program. It's designed for first level general nurses, so RNs. And there are 3 components to this as well. So it's also the credential evaluation. The CGFNS qualifying exam is a part of this certification program, and then evidence of passing one of the approved English language proficiency exams as well. There are a few benefits to this certification program. CP is either required or accepted by about 2/3 of the state boards for approval to take the NCLEX RN exam. So it can be helpful on your journey to licensure. And then secondly, I think I hear a lot of nurses talking about it in this context. The qualifying exam it also satisfies the nursing knowledge requirement for the VS certification. So if we go back a slide, actually, and we take a look at those Visa Screen requirements, that second one is the CGFNS qualifying exam, or NCLEX. So if you're not able to take the NCLEX, or you don't want to take the NCLEX yet, you can go through the certification program and take the qualifying exam, and that would meet that requirement. So now we can skip ahead 2 slides, and we'll just take a quick look again at those components of the certification program here. Again, it's the credentials evaluation, the qualifying exam, and the English language proficiency test. So this is another area where if you're going for the certification program, it doesn't matter if your state requires English, you would need the English language exam for certification here.
Very good. We do have I have 2 questions for you coming from our very active audience today. I love it. The first one is, can they submit an expired license as part of a visa screen, as the candidate doesn't have, in order to renew their license, they have to have a social security number. So can they submit an expired license as part of the visa screen?
I'm not Sure. For visa screen, if you're able to submit a expired license. I don't think so, but I do have my email address listed at the end here. So if you want to go ahead and send me an email with your ID, I can check for you.
That is awesome. Hopefully that was AR Mand who asked that question. So hopefully you heard that. Shoot Kaylee an email at the end of this. Just as you've asked that question, different states have different requirements too. Some states will accept a license that has lapsed for 5 years.
Yes.
Some states, in order for you to endorse, you have to have a current valid license. So again, like Kaylee said earlier, you ask one question, you're going to get 50 different answers, 51 if we're including Washington, D.C. So one question, 51 different answers. The other question was for a credentials evaluation in visa screen, do they need to send their entire syllabus, which is 200 pages, or the format with the 19 categories?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the beginning? It cut out.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. For the credentials evaluation in a visa screen, do they need to send the entire course syllabus, which they're saying in their case is 200 pages, or they have a 19-page portion that's like all of the categories?
So it would depend on what we may already have on file for that school. So if we would already have it on file, then absolutely they would need to send it again. For the credentials evaluation, what we're evaluating is usually just the transcript for your program, which wouldn't normally be hundreds of pages long. And then there's an additional worksheet that we would have you send to the school that they would fill out. That includes that information that the state boards want. So the hours information. So in a unique case, we may need that from the school, but if we already have it on file, we wouldn't need them to submit that as well.
Very good. Very good. I know that exemption process of, being educated in English, it's a lot of people will just say, I was educated in English, and it's a very, very stringent process to be exempted from the English exam. You got to check a lot of boxes.
Yes. And I know for visa screen, it also is dependent upon the country that you're coming from. No matter if you were educated in English in another country, it does need to be from a certain set. And then for CES reports, that also can come down to the state as well. There are some states that wouldn't accept those exemptions, and there are states that will. So again, it comes down to checking with the state that you are seeking to be licensed in.
This is why our licensure team and our case management team are so important to your journey. So important to your journey. To answer, Nick had a question about the PTE real quick. Nick, if you're endorsing your license to North Carolina or Texas, then yes, the PTE exam is perfectly acceptable for licensure by endorsement. So I wanted to make sure I answered his question as I saw it. Trying to make sure which English exams are accepted for a visa screen. I'm pretty sure I might be able to list them all, is the Cambridge exam, the MET, the OET, the PTE, the IELTS, the TOEFL. Is that it?
Did you get Pearson?
Yeah, PTE.
Yes.
I think that's about it. I think there's 6 total, but I know like within each exam, there's different, like you have TOEFL IBT, and it's very specific, but you can easily navigate to CGFNS's webpage and click on visa screen, and it lists them all for you, and it lists the scores that they accept as well. So please, please, please become user-friendly with CGFNS's page and their state requirements. It is very user-friendly. I cannot say enough about how well that website is managed and updated.
I reference it myself as well. Another element we haven't even mentioned is that the states also change their requirements. So if you've looked into this a few years ago and you met the requirements, do double check, because the states may have changed their requirements in the past few years. And in those cases, they do communicate that to us, or we hear enough that we reach out to them. But just make sure you're double checking even over time, because just another pitfall is that those regulations can change.
Yeah, for example, I just heard from South Carolina yesterday that they have a board meeting next month, and English language proficiency exams are on the docket for them to discuss at their next board meeting. So constantly changing, people. It is a constantly changing world we live in, especially in the world of nursing.
So we've talked about a couple different programs, and you're hearing about requirements from different areas. We've touched on this a little bit already, but just to reiterate, there are different requirements coming from different places. So when we're talking about the determinative assessments, today that's the VS and the CP programs, those are credentials that are evaluated against CGFNS standards. Occasionally, there are changes that are enacted by the federal government that would impact visa screen. But for the advisory report, and that's the CES report, those credentials are being evaluated against CGFNS standards and the State Board of Nursing regulations. So those are those changes that can be made. They're going to be set by the state boards, and there's nothing that we can do at CGFNS to change those because it comes from the state boards themselves. And it's a requirement that they would have for us to submit our report to them.
Awesome.
We can jump to the next slide.
One person asked, I think I might be able to answer this question. Is it possible to submit an English exam taken in 2020 for a visa screen? And it's my understanding that all exams are only valid for 2 years. So your exam in 2020 would be expired by now.
I was thinking it was 2022, but absolutely in 2023, yes, I believe that would be expired as well. You can double check on our website for that as well.
All right.
Excellent. So finally, I just wanted to note the CGFNS Alliance before we close out here. At the Alliance for Ethical International Recruitment Practices, as the name implies, our aim is to help ensure international recruitment is done fairly and it's done ethically. We've been around since 2008, and we have a healthcare code that's designed to establish the best practices for fair and transparent recruitment of health workers into the U.S. specifically. So there are firms that have applied and demonstrated compliance with this code, and they get certified. So you can identify certified firms by this seal. Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions has been certified for a number of years now. They just completed our recertification program. So they've just undergone all of the steps again to make sure that they're in compliance with our code. They're agreeing to oversight from the Alliance. So if you have any ethical concerns about your recruitment, whether or not it's with Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions, if it's you or if it's a friend, anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out confidentially to us at this email address. Everything that you send to the Alliance is confidential unless you ask us to share it with a firm. So please feel free to reach out there. On the final slide here, I've also included my email address. If we jump forward, thank you. And so if you have any other questions that I'm not able to answer today, there's a lot more people working at CGFNS, and I'm happy to pass them along to someone who may be able to answer them. So please use this email address, email me your questions, whether it's about the Alliance or CGFNS.
Awesome. Awesome. I do know one question that some of our candidates have, and I know that CGFNS recently made a change that has actually had a really big impact on our candidates, and that was increasing the cost of the visa screen. I think it went from, is it 500 to 700 or 300 to 500? I don't remember which one it was, but can you explain sometimes like why we see those cost increases?
Yes. So I think right now everyone's pretty familiar with cost increases for everything in the world around us. But for the visa screen, some of this is impacted by the fact that we didn't change any of the visa screen prices for a long time. And so in order to sort of catch up, we've had to do some larger jumps for that. And of course, right now, we have in the past 5 years doubled the amount of interest in visa screen. We're seeing double the amount of applications that we used to, which means we're needing to increase our staff, increase the resources that we have to engage with that. I know that we all want these reports to get out faster, to be done as quickly as possible. And so some of the reflection of that is needing to raise those prices.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just kind of wanted CGFNS. I wanted our nurses to hear that, like, we're not doing this to just like be mean because we can. Right. We're seeing price increases all over the world. I know here in the US, we talk about eggs all the time.
Yes, we do.
Talk about eggs a lot. Eggs have never been in the news so much. I'm looking at one other question. Let's see. New York is one of those, they have their own realm, right?
Yes,
If you go to CGFNS and you see like New York even has their own little fancy label with like the Statue of Liberty spikes in the back, and like New York is just fancy. So we do have a question for in regards to New York. Do you recycle school and license documents that were used for a CVS New York verification to process for the visa screen? So by recycle, I'm assuming like, do you mean like, can the documents apply to both?
Yes,
Okay.
so that's my understanding. So in between like a CES report and a visa screen, we would be able to take a transcript that we'd receive from a visa screen to utilize in a CES report if it's within, I think, 4 years. They consider it current.
Mhm.
For the New York State, it may be different. So the New York's program is different. It's a credentials verification, not an evaluation, which means you're just submitting your information and we're authenticating it, and then we're passing it along to New York. And so sometimes the standards aren't as high for that, or they're just different. So for New York, it may not be possible to transfer them. It may just depend on what information your school provided when they did that assessment, because I believe that the information we ask is different than the information we would ask for in a CS report. And so some states wouldn't accept that.
I'm so glad you explained. I'm so glad that person asked that question, because I've always wondered, like, why does New York get their own like shenanigan? They get their own show over in New York. So thank you for explaining that. We have somebody else who has asked, I think it's going to be a processing time question. They're on the process of their visa screen, and whenever you receive the documentation from the university or the nurse organization from their country, how long, what's the general processing time that CGFNS is looking at right now to turn a check mark green?
Yes. So right now, I'm thinking, so previously it used to be about a month and a half. When we would work it out, it was 20 to 25 business days. Right now, we are operating beyond that simply because of the volume that we're receiving. Because of some visa changes and things that happened in the past year, we haven't seen a dip down from that volume yet. So we are operating beyond those 20 to 25 business days. And I can't give you much more of a time frame than that. I can tell you we've recently hired a lot of individuals who are hoping to get that down as much as we can, but it's definitely beyond the standard processing time right now.
How many nurses do you think CGFNS like works with? If you know this number, you may not know this number. Like on average in a year, how many nurses do you work with?
So I don't know for CES, which is our largest program. I can tell you for Visa Screen last year, we received over 7,000 or 17,000 applications for Visa Screen alone. That's throughout the whole year, but that's only one program, and it's not our biggest one. So it's hundreds of thousands, I would say, when we count everything up for different orders. So there's a high volume coming in right now. Simply because of the high demand for these services that you're bringing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I always like to remind nurses, on the friendly side of, you're not alone in your journey. You've got people at CGFNS who will help you. You've got your whole family at Worldwide who is here to help you and walk you through it. But on the other side, you're not alone in that 17,000 other people just for a visa screen. So remember that. I ask you to remember that and to have that patience as CGFNS works to build up their staff so that, everybody's trying to get that processing time down. I know the United States government, which CGFNS, I'll tell you this, is a lot more clear than the United States government on maybe why things are taking a little longer than necessary. So shout out to CGFNS for always giving us a clear and honest response. I see a lot of questions for nurse aides and all that kind of stuff. Nurse aides have their own entity. They're not required to take an NCLEX. Most of our nurse aides do, go through like a visa screen or a different process for their immigration. that doesn't require an English exam. So we will hold off on all the nurse aid questions because I know there's a massive wait list to get nurse aides into the United States. So I think we have answered all of the questions. One person asked if there's going to be any changes in lowering the IELTS band score for speaking. I have not heard of it being lowered. Actually, to be honest with everyone, from what I've heard and from what CGFNS is stating, is that we're actually working to increase the required score for the PTE. So nothing's being lowered that I'm aware of. What about you, Kaylee?
No, I haven't heard anything about IELTS at all, and certainly nothing being lowered right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's it. I'm not seeing any more CGFNS related questions. Is retrogression waiving? Does that question make sense to you?
I'm not sure about the waiving part. I know that retrogression has been lower for the past couple of years than it has been for about a decade, depending upon, the countries you're coming from. It may be current from places like the Philippines. I think last I knew, India was up to about 7 years, which is still low. It's a lot, but it's lower.
Yeah.
So I know that there have been changes there in the past few years.
Awesome. Well, Kaylee, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you so much for explaining all of these different processes. This show is recorded and it's posted on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. And you've given us your email address. So if our nurses have any questions, absolutely. Hopefully you're not completely flooded and inundated with all new emails, but I know you're like, bring it on. It's what I do.
Ready. Absolutely. And thank you so much. This is a great resource.
Thank you. We love getting information out to our nurses. And anytime there's a change with CGFNS, we would love to have you back on to kind of walk us through those changes and any changes that you guys are seeing. You've been such a valuable, informative guest today. So we sincerely appreciate you. We're going to toggle off for Miss Kaylee and I'm going to close us out. So I've got lots of thank yous for you, Kaylee. So thank you again, CGFNS. Thank you, Kaylee. And I hope you have an awesome day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude Kari's Corner for today. Please send your case manager an email. This is recorded, it's uploaded, watch it on YouTube, Facebook, all of our social media sites. We are actually getting a TikTok site up and running. So make sure you check out TikTok, worldwide TikTok. You never know what we're going to be up to in the office. All of our case managers, I do kind of want to throw this out there for all of our nurses. Our case managers, our entire case management team that's on the U.S. side, case managers are busy. Absolutely. We're bringing in all of our office from Idaho, Charlotte, and we have a giant case manager university that they're going to be participating in Monday through Friday next week. So if your case manager has taken a little bit longer to get back to you than normal, please be patient. We're doing a whole professional development thing and making sure they're all up to date on all of the legal processes and the State Board of Nursing processes. They're training so that they can provide the best possible resources for you. So please be patient with them as they are training next week. But I will still be here. Kari's Corner will still be up and running next week. So excited to see you next week. Just a friendly reminder that, just because you're in Kari's Corner, don't face the corner, face the world with Worldwide. Everybody have an awesome day.